Good morning. Today is October 26th, 2018. We are on the record at 9:34 a.m. This is the video deposition of Clint Ponder in the matter of Helder Flores versus the City of Houston, Texas et al. In the United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas. This deposition is being held at 900 Bagby Street on the 3rd floor in Houston, Texas, zip code 77002. My name is Ben Harwood, and I am the videographer present on behalf of Stratus Legal. The court reporter is Rebecca Earhart, also present on behalf of Stratus Legal. Will counsel please state their appearance and firm affiliation for the record?
U.A. Lewis for plaintiff, Helder Flores.
Jim Butt for the city defendants, and we would like to read and sign the deposition. And this deponent is for the limited purpose of demographics of arrestees and criteria for gang tracker database entries and demographics.
Kimberly Clark for defendants Los Santia Apartments and 2012 Multi-Family Real Estate Fund.
Will the court reporter please swear in the witness, and we may proceed.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Clint Ponder.
Clint
Ponder, P-O-N-D-E-R, Clint.
Okay. And Mr. Ponder, can you tell us what your position is with the City of Houston?
I'm a sergeant with the Houston Police Department assigned to the Gang Division and the Gang Intelligence Unit.
Okay. And how long have you been working for the City of Houston as a sergeant for the Houston Police Department gang? You said it's gang
Intelligence
Unit. Okay.
2.5 years.
Okay. Do you know what date it was that you started?
I can't say for sure.
Okay. And so it was sometime in 2015 or 2016?
It's been at least 2 years, so it had to be 16, 15.
Okay. And where were you working at prior to the Gang Intelligence Unit?
Prior to that, I was a sergeant with the Investigator First Responder Division.
Okay. All right. And are you stationed out of a particular area?
So my role is citywide. I'm currently officing out of our Southwest station.
Okay.
But my role is citywide.
Okay.
So I oversee our gang tracker database and our intelligence unit. And so our intelligence unit, we're responsible for each patrol region of the city. So I have an officer dedicated to each patrol region, and I oversee those officers.
Okay. And was there any type of training that you had in order to become a sergeant in the gang intelligence unit?
Well, my years of experience has been with the Fonder and Divisional Gang Unit.
Okay.
I worked there for 10 plus years before I promoted, and then there's different, all kinds of different things I've done. But my years of gang experience is working at Fonder Division, but now Fonder Division is now called Southwestern Division.
Okay. And so after you were working for the Fondren Division Gang Unit, that's when you became a sergeant for the first responders?
Yeah, well,
okay.
Southwestern, Fonder Division was no more. They changed stations and they became Southwestern. I was at Southwestern for about 2 years before I promoted to sergeant. So it's the same area of town, there's different names.
Okay.
It's 17th District. And then I promoted to sergeant, and then when you promote to sergeant, you go back to patrol. I did patrol for a year.
Yes, slow down, please.
I'm sorry.
Promoted sergeant
And then I went back, then I had to go to patrol. I was in patrol for a year.
Okay.
Then I did investigative first responder division for about 2.5 years. And now I'm at the gang division.
So you were a sergeant, just so I'm understanding this correctly, you were a sergeant for the Fondren Gang Division.
I was an officer
one
then.
at a time. You were a sergeant for the Fondren.
Gang Division?
I was an officer there.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you became a sergeant during that time?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
yeah, you take the test and stuff like that. Then I promoted, and
Okay.
then once you promote, you leave your current assignment, obviously.
And you were a sergeant. Describe in the capacity you were a sergeant after you were promoted from the Fondren Gang Division unit. I know that you mentioned before that you became a first responder sergeant, so I'm assuming that's not the first sergeant assignment that you had, is that right?
Well, the patrol sergeant was the first sergeant assignment I had.
Thank you, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when you said you went back to patrol, that's what you meant, you were a patrol sergeant?
Yes, and
Okay.
you promote, your first assignment is in a patrol station.
Got it, okay.
You have to take a patrol station for a year before you can go somewhere else.
Okay,
And there's other things too, but as a general rule, yes, patrol for 1 year.
okay. I thought you had just gone back to be a regular patrol officer, that's why I wanted some
No.
clarification, so thank you. So then after you became a patrol sergeant, that's when you became a first responder sergeant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how long were you a first, let me back up.
It's called.
Let me,
One at a time.
let me strike that, I'm sorry, I'm
We
gonna,
have to wait until she's
Yes, ma'am.
completely done with her question. I can't take two people talking at the
Okay.
same time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
yeah, I'm sorry, I should have explained that in advance. So, before you were a sergeant in the patrol division, or while you were a sergeant in the patrol division, how long were you there?
I don't, repeat the question?
Okay, you became a sergeant in the patrol division first, correct?
Okay, when I first promoted, my first assignment was at the Midwest Patrol Station.
Okay. How long were you there?
I was at the Midwest Patrol Station approximately 3 months.
Okay. And that's in the capacity of a sergeant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then next you became a sergeant, you were a sergeant in the first responders, correct?
No, then I spent 9 months at West Side Patrol Division.
Okay. All right, and then after spending 9 months at the West Side Patrol Division,
Then I went to the Investigator First Responder Division out of the Southwestern Station.
okay. Now, were you a sergeant and investigator? Does it work that way?
Yes, I
Okay.
mean, I oversaw 4 officers. They work cases, and I could work cases as well.
Okay,
I didn't have a required caseload, they did.
got it, okay. All right, and, yeah, okay, so after you became a sergeant, an investigator, and that was at what location, I'm sorry?
The division was called IFR, Investigator First Responder Division,
Okay.
but we had IFRs at each patrol station, so I officed out of Southwestern Station.
Okay. And that's where you currently office out of, correct?
Well, now I currently office out of the Southwest Station, but I'm assigned to the gang division.
Right, so, but you're still at the same,
No,
Location.
it's a different
One at a
location.
time, but you're still at the.
same location?
No, Southwest Station is different than Southwestern.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I guess I was confused, I thought that's where it changed the name. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so now back on track to, you're becoming a sergeant with the gang division. I'm sorry, before I move on, how long were you a first responder investigator in that unit?
I believe it's about 2.5 years.
Okay. All right. Now, relating to the gang intelligence unit, you don't know when you started there, correct?
I'm pretty sure it was around July, I guess, 2015.
Okay. And although that's citywide, that's the Southwest Division, correct? Is where you're located?
I officed out of the Southwestern Division, and our
Southwestern.
cases were Southwestern and then surrounding stations.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now, prior to becoming a City of Houston police officer, did you work for any other police department?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Can we go up the record for a second?
Sure.
You have somebody in the lobby.
Okay.
Time is 9:44 a.m. and we're off the record. Time is 9:47 a.m. and we're back on the record.
All right. Officer Ponder, or sorry, Sergeant Ponder, can you tell me if you've ever had your deposition taken before?
No, I have not.
Okay. And I should have done this before we even got started. Excuse me, there will be a little bit of housekeeping I want to keep you up to date on, and that's there will be objections along the way here. Mr. Butts will object from time to time, and that doesn't mean that you don't answer the question. It just gives him an opportunity to make his objection for the record and also tell you if there's any privileged information that you're not supposed to answer that that he wouldn't want you to answer. So that's a part of the reason why we need you kind of slow down when you're responding. Also, if you could use words instead of nods and shakes in your response, if there's just a response that requires a yes or no, that would be helpful to everybody, including especially the court reporter. And also, if you need to take a break or anything, you can let us know, and we'll go off the record, kind of like what we just did. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sergeant Ponder, did you ever have you ever testified in a lawsuit before?
I'm not sure. Can't remember.
You can't remember if you've been in court and testified in a lawsuit before?
I've testified many times in district court. I've testified in federal court for criminal cases. I can't recall if I've testified
In a civil lawsuit?
in a civil lawsuit.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I have. I can't. Yes, I have.
Okay. And what was that case about?
It was a civil injunction against La Promenade, 7400 Bissonnette apartment complex.
Okay. Is that the only time that you can recall?
Yeah, because they had a couple going with some other apartment complexes, but I don't think I ever testified.
Okay. All right. Moving on, I think we left off where I asked if you had worked for another agency besides HPD before.
I have not. HPD is my only agency I work for.
Okay. And what type of training was provided to you through HPD for your service as an officer?
Your standard police academy, 6 months in the academy, and then once you get sworn, you do another 6 months of field training. So in all, a year of training.
Okay. And what about to become a sergeant?
To promote to the rank of sergeant, there's a test you have to take, a written test. Mm-hmm. They give you a series of books to study. Okay. You do well on that, and then you go to the assessment center. And the assessment center is a series of questions, related to the job and how you'd answer them. Mm-hmm. And they're scored from other supervisors with that same rank at different agencies.
Okay. So there's no specific training, is what you're saying?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And did you hold any other position besides sergeant was it patrolman?
Yeah,
sergeant?
within HPD, it's officer, sergeant, but
okay.
This is the only rank.
Have you taken any other test for another rank?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Okay. Okay. And did you take any tests specifically to become a gang intelligence unit sergeant?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And how do you become a gang intelligence sergeant or any other, well, let me just back up. I'll just ask that question first. How do you become a gang intelligence unit sergeant? What's the criteria?
Specifically to go to different positions within HPD, you apply, you give them a resume, You give them a writing sample, and there's an interview process. But for this one, this position was created for me. There was no intelligence unit. They wanted to create one. They knew my background, and this is how this unit got created.
Okay. Who else is in the unit, Sergeant Ponder?
I have Megan Miller, who's assigned to Patrol Region 2, Mike Crullen, who's assigned to Patrol Region 3, Chris Reitz is assigned to Patrol Region 1.
I'm sorry, can you slow down? You said Mike Croller?
Mike Crullen,
Crullen.
C-R-I-L-L-E-N, Crullen, and then Chris Reitz, Patrol Region 1,
And how do we spell Reitz?
R-E-I-T-Z.
Okay.
And then Chad Ellis is over the gang tracker.
Okay. And was there any special type of training? Let me strike that. Did you choose these individuals to be a part of your unit?
I did.
Okay. And was there any special type of training that was employed before allowing them to become a part of the unit?
There was no training. It was just their background and no training.
Okay. Was there any training after they became a part of the unit?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So when you say no training, there was no training whatsoever?
Correct.
Okay. And you just relied on their prior experience, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any testing
No, ma'am.
before or after entering the unit with these 4 individuals?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. And you said the unit was recently created. Who created the unit?
I'm guessing it came from Chief Satterwhite. The department's all about communication and wants to share information, and they created this intelligence unit. So we work as a liaison between our main gang division and the different divisional gang units on the streets.
Okay. And who's the head of the main gang division?
Captain Johnson.
And what's Captain Johnson's first name?
Carolita.
Can you spell that for me?
Carolita.
Okay. All right. And are there any other units under the main gang division like yours?
I mean, the gang division, there's quite a few units in the division.
Okay. And so yours is called the intelligence unit?
Yes.
Okay, what are the other units?
Okay, we have 3 HIDA squads. We have HIDA Squad 1, HIDA Squad 2, HIDA Squad 3. We also have a CAT unit, which stands for Criminal Apprehension Team.
Okay.
And then we also have our Crime Reduction Unit. And within our Crime Reduction Unit, there's currently, I think, 5 units in that.
Okay.
And then we have a GREAT unit.
You said a gray unit?
GREAT unit, and I can't tell you what it stands for.
Okay.
It's
Do you have the acronym?
yeah, a GREAT, G-R-E-A-T.
So all the letters. Okay.
And they're in schools teaching a curriculum for kids, say no to drugs, say no to gangs, that type of stuff.
Are there sergeants to each of these units, like yourself?
Yes.
Okay. And who are the sergeants? For the, I guess, HIDA squad would be first.
For the HIDA squad, we have Eric Beecham is one. Justin Kennedy is another.
And he's in HIDA also, right?
Yes.
Okay. Justin,
Kennedy.
okay.
And then Jason Phillips.
Okay.
And then over the CAT unit, it's Kerry Richards.
And Carrie, how do you spell Carrie?
Kerry.
Okay.
And then over the GREAT unit, it's Roland Nieto. And then I forgot one. Roland's also over the Great Unit and the Technical Surveillance Unit.
Okay. And can you spell Roland's last name for us?
Nieto.
Okay. And you said he's over the Great Unit as well as the Technical?
Technical Surveillance Unit.
Okay. And we also have the Crime Reduction Unit.
Yes. Duck Wynn is one of the sergeants.
And how do you spell Duck?
Duck, D-U-C. Duck Wynn.
Okay.
Billy Banks.
Billy Bank?
Yes. Billy Banks.
Okay.
Robert Simpson.
Okay.
Jaime Ruiz.
Okay.
Sneed, I think it's Jeffrey Sneed, S-N-E-E-D,
Okay.
and I think I'm missing one.
1, 2, 3.
Ramos, is it Ramos?
Okay. And you don't know Ramos's first name?
No, I can't think of
Okay.
it.
If you.
And there's also, we have an admin unit as well.
Okay.
Ricky Rojas is over the admin unit.
Ricky Rojas?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And who is who's responsible, or who has the responsibility of all these units to create the general orders for for the gang crime unit?
Well, there's
units.
The general order is a collaboration with everybody.
Okay.
Actually, the most current version we have, they asked me. I was involved in a lot of the changes on that one.
Okay.
But it's kind of like a collaboration with everybody.
Okay. And when was the last general order created?
The last update was official sometime in 2017.
Okay. And was the new updated general order, was it actually updated, or was it a brand new order that started from scratch?
I'm sorry, updated.
Okay. Who else was involved in the updates of the general order?
I think everybody.
When you say everybody, you mean everybody that you named?
Well, not everybody. I mean, there's little sections. The captain will ask everybody's opinion on this. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, is this proper? And then we give our opinion, and then they'd write a rough draft and send it to city legal, and it goes back and forth for months and sometimes years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my next question. So city legal did have some input on the general orders?
They do look at it, yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding. I don't know exactly how it all works, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fair enough. Okay. Did you bring the most current general order for the gang?
No, I did not.
Okay. Were you asked to?
No, I was not.
Okay. Okay, can we go off the record for just a moment?
Time is 10:02 a.m. and we are off the record.
Okay.
Time is 10:04 a.m. We're back on the record.
Okay. Sergeant Ponder, I'm going to hand you what I'm going to mark as exhibit number, City of Houston, exhibit number 1. It's a notice for this deposition.
Can I see that a second?
Oh, do you have copies of it? No? Okay, it's fine. And were you able to, I think you mentioned that you didn't get a chance to see that before you came, is that right?
I did see this, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. And on there, it asked for you to bring the produced general orders. Did you bring any general orders with you?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay.
All general orders that were requested were already produced.
Right, but we asked him to bring it with him today. That's part of the Deuce Tecum.
Well, if you need the general order, it was already produced. So we didn't provide him with anything to give to you today.
Okay, so you didn't bring that with you?
I was not asked, and I did not bring anything.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give you what's marked as exhibit number 2. It is the gang crime general order from 2008. Here. Well, actually, you can pass that to him, and there you go.
Oh, well,
Was there another general order that was updated between 2008 and 2017?
No, ma'am, there was not.
Okay, so 2008 was the general order in place in 2015, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that would be July 2015, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right, and did you have any input in this particular order? I know that you were not the sergeant at that time, but you were working in the gang unit, or in a gang unit. Did you have any input on this?
No,
general
ma'am, I
order?
did not.
Okay. Did you have any training as it relates to this general order when it came out?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do any officers have any training as it relates to the gang general orders?
There's never any training specifically on the general orders. I mean, they come out, we read them. There's
Okay.
training in general, but nothing specific to the general orders.
So when a general order comes out, there's not a test that's involved or any type of training to make sure that there's an understanding of the content in these general orders, is that right?
There's no training. Basically, you acknowledge throughout the years of the department, there's different ways we've done it, whether signing a hard copy or whether electronically hitting a button on a computer, just acknowledging that you've read it and understood it. That's how it's done.
Okay. And is that the way that this general order was responded to from you when you received this general order? Did you go into?
I'm sure that's how I originally saw it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you went onto the computer and was able to verify that you understood and.
In 2008, I would probably guess that there was probably a handwritten hard copy that I had to sign, and that's
Okay.
how I probably did it.
Okay. And tell me about the handwritten hard copy that you're talking about.
Well, throughout the years as general orders used to come out, basically at the stations there would be a list, the officer's name would be there, and then you would sign your name next to it that you received a copy or you acknowledged that you've read it, and that's pretty much how it was
Okay.
done.
And you said that either you received a copy or you acknowledge that you've read it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there two signature lines for that, or does that encompass, one signature encompass both?
One signature for both.
Okay. So it's not that you received it and that you've read it, it's just one of the two, correct?
Correct.
Objection, I think that's misstates his statement, but you can answer.
He's already answered.
I mean, I can't recall different phases in my career. Sometimes they would give you an actual hard copy, sometimes it would be on the computer. I can't recall.
Okay. And I'm going to strike that as non-responsive. There was not a question. He's already answered that question. Okay. And going through this general order here, tell me how a officer is that encounters an individual that they believe should be entered into the gang database. How do they go about understanding how they are to go forward with that information as far as entering into the gang database?
Well, there's the officers on the street encounters an individual, they make conversation with him, and if he fits the criteria to be considered a gang member, then he can come back and put him in the database.
Okay. And so, walk me through that type of encounter. So an officer just has a conversation with a person. Is that pursuant to a detention or arrest?
It could be anything. It could be anywhere from a traffic stop to maybe a trespass investigation where there's guys hanging out in front of a convenience store, and then anywhere from running a disturbance call and there's two parties involved in the disturbance, and during the course of conversation you determine one's a possible gang member, or it could be an investigator doing an interview to a witness or a possible complainant or suspect, and during the course of that conversation determine they're a possible gang member.
Okay. And let's say, for example, there's a disturbance call, and there's no arrest made, but just the call for the disturbance. How does an officer determine whether there's a gang? Does it have to be a gang activity type of disturbance, or? No,
if they believe that individual's a possible gang member, well, they just got to ask some questions.
Okay, so even if it's like a domestic violence type of disturbance call, that would also be included?
Any encounter with anybody at any time, you could, ask questions and, just strike up a conversation and talk about his background, his history, and determine if he's a possible gang member.
Okay. And what type of conversations would you strike up to find out if a person's a gang member?
You just ask them if they're a gang member.
Okay. And a lot of times people, they will say they're a gang member?
Often they do, yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of factors that go involved in it, but that's a standard one. Just ask them.
Okay. And if they deny that they're a gang member, are they still considered a gang member?
Well, in the Code of Criminal Procedures, the state legislature has deemed these 8 criteria to be considered a gang member.
8?
8. And then if that individual fits 2 of those criterias, he can be documented as a gang member. And that's what we go on. That's what the state of Texas goes on.
And where would I find that in the Code of Criminal Procedure?
Article 61.
Okay. And how did you become aware of that?
Well, it's always been, ever since I've been a policeman, we've done gang cards. It's on the back of the gang cards. And now that it's electronic, obviously now, in Gang Tracker, all the criteria are there. It's been in effect as long as I've been a policeman that I know of.
Okay. And when did you guys transition from gang card to digital?
2005.
Okay. So since this gang crime general order has been in place, it's always been digital. Is that right?
Oh, I guess you're right. Yes, ma'am, it has been.
Okay. All right. So going back, you said that if a person meets 2 criteria under the 8 criteria, then they can be determined to be a gang member, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Even if they say that they're not a gang member?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And what are those criteria, those 8 criteria?
Okay. First is self-admission. And then you have, next is, corroborating identification by a reliable person. So basically, a reliable person tells you he's a gang member. And the next one is corroborating identification by an unreliable person. So basically, an unreliable person tells you he's a gang member. The next one is kind of like there's a whole bunch of factors involved. But basically, the next one, if the individual is wearing gang colors, has gang tattoos, has knowledge of gang symbols. Then the next one is you frequent a documented gang area and you associate with known gang members. And the next one is you're arrested for a known gang crime with other gang members. And the other one is if you visit another gang member inside a penal institution other than a family member. And then the last one is if you use social media for recruiting purposes into your gang. I believe that's 8.
Okay.
I do it a lot.
Very good.
Okay. Can you explain to me who would be considered, based on your training, or based on the City of Houston's training of its officers, who would be considered a cooperating and reliable?
A reliable individual, we consider a reliable individual basically school official, like school principal, apartment complex manager, clerk at the store, another police officer, pretty much anybody other than another gang member.
Okay. And so, what would be an unreliable individual?
Another gang member, a co-defendant, a co-suspect.
Okay. And what's the difference between the two being reliable versus unreliable, is your understanding?
Well, I mean, you would consider it if you're a co-suspect, a co-defendant, they may have a reason to possibly lie or something. So therefore, it's unreliable. They're unreliable.
Okay.
That's how I interpret it, I guess.
Okay. Okay, and tell me about colors. How do you determine what colors are gang colors?
Well, you got to know the gang you're talking about. You kind of know the area of town you're at. If an individual is wearing a predominant color associated with that gang.
Okay, and that's the way that's...
Yes, I mean, it's you know, if you're a LTC, like to say, or Crip, and you're wearing a blue shirt, blue shorts, that's kind of a factor. You know, you're an LP, which is La Primera, and you're wearing a white rosary, or white belt. There's a lot of factors involved.
Okay. Are there any non-gang colors?
Well, yeah, there's lots of colors, I guess, aren't gang colors, but that individual, that gang, whatever color they associate with, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So you would have to know the gang first,
Yeah,
and then determine the color, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. You have to
Okay.
have some general knowledge of the gang, yes.
Okay. So it's not just because I have on gray, I'm automatically some gang
Correct.
member.
Everything, when you're talking to possible gang members, everything comes into play. The area of town you stopped them in,
Okay.
the area of town that individual grew up, the high school that individual went to. We use all that in determining stuff.
Okay. Is there anything else? Like the high school, the area, maybe the type of clothes, or is there anything else?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it depends on what gang you're talking about.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, so specifically in this case, we're talking about Southwest Cholos, correct? So within Southwest Cholos, we're looking for a black rosary, a long black belt, or two things they could be wearing possibly, as well as black, obviously, the color black,
Okay.
because that's the color they use.
So religious symbols, you guys look for that too?
Hispanic gangs in Southwest Houston will use a rosary. You'll see the rosary worn around the neck like a traditional rosary. You'll also possibly see it on the wrist as well.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, the long belt,
Okay.
the The little cloth belt is you wear like a Boy Scout or Cub Scout. It'll typically be wrapped around real long, where 10 inches bigger than it should be.
Okay, so they don't cut them, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. All right, is there anything else that you would consider besides,
Well, the clothing, the tattoos, I mean, there's all kinds of factors involved.
okay. What about the way they speak?
No. I mean, there are certain words certain gangs will say, but there's no tone or anything like that.
Okay. And so you are sensitive to the type of words that they might consider to...
Correct. There's certain
choose
words
to
that
use.
certain gang members will use and stuff like that. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And do you have an example?
Cuz, C-U-Z. It's a crip term. You call someone a cuz, it's like a term of endearment, right? The word damu, D-A-M-U. Damu is a blood word. It's a slang for blood. It's like saying hi or what's up. So if I'm a possible blood gang member, if I want to go up and disrespect them, I'll say, hey, what's up, cuz? And then you'll have some friction, and vice versa. And there's certain little terms. To disrespect a Southwest Cholo, you can call them Cheerio. So you can disrespect some Southwest Cholos by calling them a Cheerio.
Okay.
LP La Primera,
You're going to have to slow down, please. You can call a Southwest.
Southwest Cholo a Cheerio. And so as an officer, you're interacting with a group of guys. You throw some key words out, key terms, and depending on how they react, there may be some gang involvement there.
Okay. So, for example, if you were to call, or do Southwest Cholo and La Primera get along?
No, they do not.
Okay. So if you were to call them, I don't know, not
for
cuz,
for La Primera, you call them a lollipop. To disrespect them, you call them lollipop.
and why is that disrespectful?
That's how it's what they, because they're kind of making fun of the name, I guess, but it's just on the streets, that's what they
Okay.
don't like it.
And then why would Cheerio be disrespectful to
'Cause
Southwest Cholos?
well, it's like,
Why would
I'm
Cheerio
sorry.
be disrespectful?
to Southwest Cholos.
well, it's like Cholo, Cheerio, it's just what it's just a street thing, and they don't like it, it's a disrespectful word for them.
Okay. So if you encounter, as an officer, or if a HPD officer encounters a person that's for example, Southwest Cholo and call them a Cheerio, is that a way to determine whether they're a gang member or not?
No.
Okay.
So during the course of conversation, maybe they didn't admit to being a gang member, and you're making conversation with them, and you throw out little words, well, hey man, so what if I called you a Cheerio? Or, hey, what's up, Cheerio? And you just kind of see his reaction. There may be something there. If he looks at you like you're crazy and has no idea what you're talking about, then he may not be in gang involvement.
Okay. So let's say that they are offended when you call them a Cheerio. What's the next step after that?
Well, you can't document it just on that.
Right.
But all the factors come into play. You have to, where they were at and when you're encountering them, what
Okay.
area of town, who they were hanging out with,
Okay.
what tattoos were they wearing, or I'm sorry, what tattoos they have, what clothing were they wearing. Everything comes into play.
Okay. But if their tattoo is already visible, that's one of the 8 criteria. So
If they have gang tattoos, yes, ma'am, that's one of the
Okay.
criteria.
so you wouldn't have to figure out whether they're a Cheerio or not, right? Or be offended of being a Cheerio or not.
Well, there's no, that term and that you saying that's just stuff on the street when we're talking, that just to make me know that I'm right and he is a gang member, you know what I
Okay.
mean? That's
To
all.
confirm, just so-
One
Yes.
at a time, please. You're both talking over each other. To make me know that I'm right and he's gang.
That there's some possible gang involvement.
And to confirm. Correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And all right, so going back to the digital gang card, is that available to the units, or is that something you have to go back to the station to complete?
No, in 2005, it went live. It's in all the computers in the patrol cars. It's in all the computers at the stations. If you have access to the HPD portal, which is our main database, you have access to Gang Tracker, and every officer in the city has access.
Okay. And how broad is Gang Tracker? Is that just for HPD, or is it for other agencies as well?
Harris County SO uses it, and then there's multiple agencies that have read access only, but they don't input.
Okay. Do you guys have read access only to any other agencies, Gang Tracker, or
Text
similar?
gangs.
Sorry. Just take a breath. Before she starts, that sometimes helps, because also if he objects, we won't get it in.
Right.
Okay, do you guys have access only to any other agencies? Tracker, Gang Tracker?
Yes, the state gang database is called Text Gangs, TX and then gangs, and that's run by DPS,
Okay.
and that's a state database, and also within the CCP, that Article 61, it talks about counties over 100,000 population, cities over 50,000. I got that reversed. I'm sorry. Cities over 50,000 population, counties over 100,000 population have to maintain some type of regional database. And so that's why DPS created Text Gangs. And
So, I'm sorry, so there has to be a regional database if the county has more than 100,000 people living there?
correct.
And a city more than 50,000, is that
Correct.
right? Okay. And you said this is mandated through Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 61?
Correct.
Okay. And who's responsible, who's the mandate? No, I'm not going to ask you that, I'm going to strike that. Is there any other database besides Text gangs, I'm sorry?
No, ma'am, that's only, I believe some other cities, I believe Corpus Christi has their own database. So everything we do on Gang Tracker goes into Text Gangs. Once a month, there's a feed, everything we get. So the DPS database, Text Gangs is the state database. Everything's supposed to be housed in there.
Okay. Now, is there any type of, does a person who's entered into this database, are they made aware that they're entered into the database?
No, they are not.
So there's no type of notice whatsoever?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What if a person doesn't believe that they should be in the gang database?
If we're notified, we'll look at it and go from there.
What do you mean if you're notified?
It happens often where an attorney or a gang member that's in the database will call the division and, ask questions of why they're in the database and ask to be removed.
Okay. Is there a way to access the database to know if you're in the database?
No, it's for law enforcement only.
Okay. So if a person is entered into the database, the only way that they would know they're in the database is through what means?
They wouldn't know unless an officer told them or unless something came up, but there's no notification.
Okay. And what does it mean to be in the gang database? How does that assist law enforcement or anybody to
Well-
be included in this database?
Well, as a general rule, you think gang members commit crimes, and if gang members commit crimes to solve crimes, that's why we keep track of gang members.
Okay. So it helps solve crimes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does it help with determining suspects to certain type of crimes?
Basically, in general, it helps with investigations.
Okay.
It's a database for addresses, nicknames, vehicles associated with the gang members, so therefore when crimes are committed, it's a great research tool for investigators.
Okay. And what exactly is included in the gang tracker as it relates to a particular individual? What's collected?
Name, date of birth, address, nickname, and then a brief summary of that stop, that encounter he had with the officer. So maybe if it was a traffic stop, the 3 or 4 names that were in the car with him, and just their basic stuff.
Okay, is there anything else that's included in the gang tracker database?
On individuals, no.
The gang, that would be one thing, right? The gang that they're
Oh, yeah,
supposedly,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
of
Gang
course.
that they're,
Supposedly affiliated with?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and how does a person, do you know how a person gets taken out of the gang database?
Yes, so state law determines basically, if you're an adult, you're put in the database, you're in there for 5 years. If you're a juvenile, you're in there for 2 years. If within those 5 years you don't commit a crime, you're automatically taken out of the database. But if you commit a crime, every time you commit a crime, a Class B or above, the clock resets another 5 years. And then for convictions, whatever that conviction time is, you're housed in there. So say you get UUMV and you get your UUMV, unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. And it's typical 6-month state jail. So now you're in the database for 5 years plus 6 months.
Okay. Even if you don't serve 6 months?
Whatever your time is.
Okay, got it. And this can be for any crime?
Class B or above and a gang crime.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize.
and a gang crime?
Gang crime. Yes, that's right.
So Class B and above, and it has to be considered a gang crime?
Let me, the arrest, let me think about this. The arrest itself, yes, will be 5 years, but the sentence, if it's not, you can't extend the clock for that. So if you're a 3-time DWI and you get 3 years in TDC, if I want to say it's just 5 years for the arrest itself, but you won't get 3 years for the sentencing.
But if they were, for example, arrested and given 15 years, is that what you're saying, that would last 15 years?
If it was for like an ag assault, ag robbery, yes.
Okay. All right, and so we were talking about the type of crimes. Do they have to be gang crimes in order to be considered a continuation of the entry in the database?
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, is it DWI considered a gang crime?
No.
So if a person that is already in the database ends up getting a DUI or DWI while they're in the database, the 5 years will still be ticking away?
Yes, the arrest itself will be 5 years, but any sentencing won't be counted.
Okay.
So the arrest itself will be 5 years, but any other length of time won't be counted. I believe that's accurate.
Okay. Can you tell me what's considered a gang crime?
We pretty much consider everything other than family violence and driving offenses, DUI, DWI. So a gang crime would be theft, burglary, robbery, assault, narcotics offenses, weapons offenses, murder.
So it's everything except for family violence and driving offenses.
Yes.
And what if it's a felony driving offense? Is that still not included?
Driving offense?
Right. Like, for example, a person has a child in the car and, has a DWI, that's considered a felony.
That wouldn't be considered a gang crime.
Okay, so just because it's a felony doesn't matter, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And when a person, an officer, encounters an individual that they believe should be documented as a gang member, what steps are they to take in doing that, in documenting the individual?
Well, on the street, they just gather the information, put it on their notepad or whatever, and then later on, when they get some time, they'll put it into the computer, the database.
Okay. And is there any training for the officers to understand how to go about entering an individual into the database?
I'm currently working on that right now.
Okay.
I've been doing multiple trainings around the city, yes.
And how long have you been doing that? Doing the trainings throughout the city?
Past 6 months.
Okay. All right. And so, what type of training are you providing to these officers in entering a person into the database?
I have a 2-hour class mandated through TCOL, which is how we as peace officers in Texas do our training. So basically, I set up the training at the stations and announce that I'll be there for multiple days, and who that wants to attend, they come and attend.
So it's voluntary?
Yes.
Okay. But they get the TCO credit?
Correct.
And what does the training entail? Explain the training to us.
So basically, I go over Tracker, I go over all the searches, how we can navigate and search, and then the big thing is I go over how to properly enter a gang card, and I go over the 8 criteria on how to understand it and what it all means.
Okay. And is there anything else that you train them on?
For that class, it's pretty much all gang Tracker and just the ins and outs of Tracker and how to navigate the database, how to search the database.
Okay.
And,
So it's kind of like a technical type of class
Correct.
almost? Okay. Is there any training about how to engage an individual that they might believe could be possibly a gang member and not violate the law in doing so?
Well, I teach a basic gang class on educating officers on gangs in Southwest Houston. There's different training different guys do around the city, state. I mean, officers are welcome to go to attend all that as well too.
Okay, but it's not mandatory, correct? No. Okay. Can we go off the record for just a moment, please?
Time is 10:37 a.m. and we're off record.
Let me take a